And our discussion today is going to be moderated and chaired by Meryl Rosenthal, who's the CEO of FlexPaths. And she's delighted to collaborate with global leaders and experts who are addressing and pushing the limits on workforce and workplace dynamics, cultures, and mindsets. She's joined today by Dillon, who's the Senior Vice President, Organizational Development and Talent at HSBC. Says she's lucky to have a globally oriented job where she virtually meets people from all over the world every day. Sounds cool. Kristy Schmidt, who's the global workspace strategy at Autodesk, says she gets the opportunity to help shape the future of work for Autodesk. And finally, Daria Hodapp. Did I say that?
Yes,
okay.
You did. Thank you.
West Region Talent Team Leader for Ernst & Young. And she has the great opportunity at Ernst & Young to transform from being a tax geek, which people need tax geeks, right, to leading their HR team for the entire West region. And collectively, the panel today is really excited to talk to you about the people-centric aspects that will influence and impact the success of a space shift, not a spaceship, a space shift. Those companies that can collectively address these topics are the best poised to have winning workplaces in the future. So with that, let me turn it over to Meryl Rosenthal.
I think I might. Yes.
All right.
Wonderful.
Cool.
I think we are. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to facilitate this people-centric panel with workplace experts from HSBC, Autodesk, and Ernst & Young. And they represent a variety of professional backgrounds and perspectives that you'll hear in a moment. And momentarily, they will share their perspectives about how their companies are striving to achieve a people-centric workplace. And we're going to focus on three core areas: infrastructure alignment, generational dynamics, and utilization. And what we hope will differentiate our conversation today, and it won't be a debate, you'll see actually we're building off of each other given the different vantage points. We're still all kind of coming at this from the same direction. That we really believe that the people aspects we're going to talk about today are ones that influence and impact the success of any space shift. And we want to showcase for you, by doing those things properly and by thinking about them in a very focused way, you will be best poised to have a winning workplace. And I think the other thing that we might point out is that we're looking to really do this in a rapid-fire format. Each person will take one of those topics, talk about it, and then be fast followed by the other two, and then we will open it up for some conversation and questions. So if I might kick it off, first with Dillon on my left, who will share her perspective regarding infrastructure alignment. Frances, you've made the point that a successful agile workplace must have infrastructure alignment and the importance of managing these stakeholders and the overall partnership. Please tell us more.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So I don't know if I'm the second Scottish person on stage, so hopefully I'll be just as clear as Jerry. So yeah, I mean, you refer to it as infrastructure alignment. For us, it's strategic alignment. And really, for us, that's about the three-legged stool. So it's about bringing the HR component, the CRE, the corporate real estate component, and the IT component together to deliver what is a people-centric work environment. And anyone that knows HSBC or any sort of large global bank with a history as long as ours, we are an enormous machine. That's the culture. The culture is a machine-like culture. And it's we're not particularly adept to making change, particularly when it comes to technology. And our culture is quite hierarchical. So for us, we try to go about things like flexible working, having a very different work environment within the office, 3 different ways, many different times. So we've come about it from an HR perspective about 5 years ago, where we said it was all about people engagement and our employee value proposition. Then we went through a phase of saying, let's get real estate in here, we need to save some money, let's make some changes. And then we also had our IT people introducing us, bringing us up to the more recent century. None of it worked, until the 3 component parts pulled together into what we called open work now. So it's really about those 3 pieces working together, and I lead the HR piece for HSBC and that whole setup. I think where it's differed for us more recently, it has been, we've really taken it globally now. So the way HSBC works is we work across different business lines, so there's very little that gets done purely on a country-by-country basis. It tends to be global banking and markets, commercial banking. That's the way we're set up. So for the regular individual, what that means is there's no 9-to-5 working environment. There's just no way we can do that. My day started at 4 o'clock this morning on the phone to the UK. Later on tonight, I'll be on the phone with Hong Kong. In between, I'm doing this. Now that's just pretty normal. So everything for me is set up at my home, but I also go into New York fairly regularly, and that's our hub. Now New York looks very, very different to what it did 3 years ago. When I first went in there, I had that moment where you have the glass office, looks down in Fifth Avenue, and you think, this is it, I've arrived, I might work from my house, you know, the other days of the week, but this looks pretty cool. In the last few years, we have sold 6 of those floors. We completely redesigned the workspace. It looks completely different. There are no corporate offices now. You don't have that corner office feel. Everyone is in a cubicle, not a cubicle, an open desk environment. And it took a while. You know, it was a massive culture change for us. But it works really well, and I think the reason it works really well is because of those 3 component parts. You know, we created really different workspaces where people, you know, just lots of sofa areas, like where the meeting rooms are completely different from what they were before. Before they were very boardroom orientated. We still have that for the times that we need it, but you know, I can't follow up what Dan just spoke about. We're not DreamWorks, but we've worked very, very hard at creating creative spaces for our people. And it wouldn't work if we didn't do it through that 3-legged stool.
Wonderful, thank you. Daria, can you give us something on Ernst & Young's position?
Sure, and just to pile on what Francis just said, that the infrastructure and the harmonization, if you will, of that 3-legged stool and being holistic in how we approach things is so critical. At Ernst & Young, we've been a little bit slow, I would say, in that when we had the downturn in the economy over the last, since 2008 or so, we really slowed down a lot of those things, and we were really focusing on cost savings, especially in our real estate, and focusing on it very singularly through that filter. And we'll get into a minute on the impact of the generations on our firm and our culture. But when we slowed down on the technology innovation and our younger folks were coming at us saying, you guys are just so out of date on what you're doing, they've really pushed us to think differently. And so now we really are very focused and have some ground to catch up on making sure that we are approaching whatever we do in terms of our space and the workplace of the future from critical components, space, technology, and the impact on the engagement of our people.
Kristy, please.
Yeah, sure. So at Autodesk, we are a very consensus-driven organization. We absolutely realize the importance of bringing in real estate, HR, and IT into conversations when we're looking at significant changes in the work environment. So in order for us to make sure that we really hit the mark with any type of workplace change, we do a pilot, and we bring in all of the key players, including the end user. We feel that engaging with the people who are actually going to be sitting in the space are integrally part of any type of pilot and then rollout. So we usually pilot thing to any type of project, and then we go out and talk to the folks. We understand, what works, what doesn't work, what we could be doing better before we do any type of rollout. And then we always follow up with a post-occupancy evaluation. And if it is a major significant change, we'll also implement a change management process with workshops to really engage with all of the end users.
Kristy, thanks. Daria, let's move to theme number 2, generational dynamics. And we've all talked about this and heard about this morning, all about the generations and how large the millennial forces will be. And we've also heard that a lot of workplaces are just not prepared attitudinally or from a space perspective for the millennials. So, and we know that this is causing some disruption and angst for employers thinking about the freedom, flexibility, and collaboration that these people want and are expecting. So given Ernst & Young's business model and the fact that you do have a predominance of millennials, do you have this all wrapped up?
Oh, I wish we did, but we're getting there, and we're thinking bold, and we're thinking different, and I have to, hands off to Orange Box and Jerry, that booklet is just awesome. I really just a little bit of, had a chance to take a look at that this morning. There's a lot of really good stuff in there, so thank you for that. Ernst & Young, you know, it's interesting, as we were preparing for this panel, I think we pretty much came to the conclusion that this was not going to be a debate, that we were all coming at this from the same place. And what we've heard this morning is along the same lines. When you think about Ernst & Young, we are a professional services firm. We're a global organization, about 160,000 headcount across the globe. And just in the US, each year, we hire between full-time hires and interns about 10,000 new faces off of campus every single year. And the stats are saying that something like 40-ish% of the workforce will be millennials by 2020. At Ernst & Young today, 65% of our workforce are millennials. So they are really pushing us. And as I said a minute ago, especially on the heels of when we slowed things down in 2008 through 2010, and what we saw with the onslaught of the technology moving faster and faster, the push from our younger folks to get on board with using an iPhone. We were completely BlackBerry dedicated. Using iPads and being able to do things that are proprietary that could only be accessed through a PC, to be able to do those same types of utilities on an iPad or a smartphone, they're really pushing us and pushing us fast. So it's having a huge impact on us. And then, as Frances said a minute ago, HSBC is very hierarchical. Hierarchy at Ernst & Young is so steeped in our culture. That's a big culture and change management area that we need to focus on as we move forward. But what we're doing with our new spaces, it is much more informal, more spaces that are set out more like a living room furniture type of environment. Fixed offices, corner offices are a thing of the past, and it's not your space, it's available to you. It's our space to share. And I loved what Jerry was talking about in terms of connecting people and not furniture. And that is a great statement that I'm going to keep with me as I move forward, because that's a great way to emphasize what we are trying to do with our culture and the change management of where we need to go. But we need to be bold and we need to move fast because, as I said before, these kids are pushing us hard. And if we take too long, we're going to lose them. In the war for talent, it's all about engagement and retention, and without having a space that they are excited to come to, that's cool to them, the space that I grew up is not cool with. So we've got to do things differently.
Great. So Frances, you have a different mix at your organization. How would you respond to that same question?
We do have a different mix. We're predominantly Gen X, but I think exactly the approach in terms of what we do, it's the same approach. You know, I think that what Jerry said about, you know, get a clue about millennials, like we, I mean, I think that reality hit home for us only about a year ago, that we really needed to get a clue about millennials. And there's a whole kind of global project going on in that space for us right now. I think it does talk to the spaces that we work in, but it also talks to the whole employee value proposition. It's completely different for that group. And it influences everything that we do. So for us, like even some of the smaller things we've started doing is something called, we've got a reverse mentoring program. So our very senior people, we have millennials and Gen Y people, reverse mentoring them. So really sitting down with the operational ones of our organisation and saying, yeah, I hear what you're saying and I understand what you're trying to do, that's the strategy, here's how I would do it. And sometimes how I would do it from a millennial, well, very often is completely different. Yeah, so it's learning at every level of the organisation.
Great. Kristy?
Yeah, so we're made up a little bit more like HSBC. We're a smaller company, 7,000 globally. We have predominantly Gen X, 25%. Gen Y, and then about 20% baby boomers. And the way that we typically design space, we come at it from how our people are working. And predominantly, we're doing a lot of teamwork. We're not doing a lot of solo work. We're doing agile software development where we're getting big teams of people together to develop our software. So we create a lot of open spaces with, writable walls and a lot of things that a lot of people are doing right now. But we want to make sure that when we're designing our office space, that we're designing it to draw people to the office. So we're being very purposeful. We know people have a choice in where they work today, so we want to make sure that the way that we design our space is purposeful, and we want to draw everybody to the office as frequently as we can get them for that face-to-face collaboration and engagement that we feel is really important for Autodesk.
Perfect. So that's a great segue to the third topic, which is utilization. And we're going to dig in a little bit. Kristy will take the lead. What Autodesk is doing in terms of utilization, some of the challenges, the shifts that you've experienced in the last few years, and how you track it.
Yeah. So Autodesk, just to kind of set the stage, is a very tech-savvy, sophisticated group of people. We have technology embedded into all of our office spaces that helps bring people together face-to-face and virtually, doing collaboration remotely. But over the last couple of years, because we are so distributed, we have noticed a gradual decline in our utilization of our office space. So we've started tracking the utilization from both a people and a place perspective. So we look at badge data for looking at how frequently people are actually coming into the office. And we perform space studies to kind of take a look at where people are working when they're in the office. So when they actually come in, what spaces are they using more and what spaces are they not using? Because we want to make sure that our offices are the top choice for where people want to work. We obviously know we're very distributed. People are going to be working remotely a lot of the time, but we want to make sure that when people are near the office, that they come into the office. So that's one of our main focuses right now. We have been starting to share a little bit of this utilization data with our senior leaderships to say, this is sort of the trend that we're seeing. Let's understand from a culture perspective and a leadership perspective what the philosophy is at Autodesk on mobility. Is it okay that our utilization is declining? And if it is, we want to rethink the way that we allocate office space. So one of the things that we're looking at right now is going unassigned for some of our groups where we are experiencing low utilization. And so right now we're having those great conversations. It's sparking a lot of interest with our leadership, especially since Yahoo and HP have put out some mandates. That's definitely not the culture at Autodesk, but it's really sparking some great conversations with senior leadership about what is the direction that we want to take. So over the next few months, we're going to be continuing to track the utilization and reporting back with some options for our groups.
Great. Daria, what's Ernst & Young's position about remote workers and having people in the office versus not?
Well, that is, a place where we have to do a lot of change management. And our work teams are working out at client sites most of the time. They're not in the office. And we really want them to feel comfortable coming, and as I said before, being drawn into the office as a cool place to be. And but we too have had the same trend where we've seen utilization declining and people having the technology to work remotely will decide to, I'm not going to commute today, I'll work at home or I'll work at the client site or whatever. But we need to have them come into the office to remember that they're Ernst & Young employees and be connected to us, be connected to our culture. So we are really trying to make the new spaces, we build new spaces out, very attractive to our younger groups. So for example, in San Francisco, we've got 3 or 4 buildings, and it was actually JP Morgan building is where we are, was one of the earlier slides that we saw this morning. But one of our new floors we built out, and it is very, very different than our traditional workspace. And you go on that floor, and the utilization is like 80%. It's crazy busy. The vibe, the energy is so much higher. You go to the floor that I sit on, which is more of a traditional workspace. It can be full, but it feels empty. But it's typically only about 50–60% utilized in any given day.
Francis?
Yeah, it's the same for us. I think we've done really well at setting people up at home because we had a real business need for that. So people have, that's where technology has done really, really well. Over the last 2 years, I think we've got much better at focusing on our office hubs. So we've reduced the amount of corporate real estate that we have, but the bits that we do have, we have really turned them upside down, and we're about halfway through. Kind of exactly what Daria is saying. You go into one floor and it's like, well, this is pretty cool, and then you go up and it could be 1980s banking hall environment. So we're gradually getting there, and same thing, we're seeing greater utilisation on the really, really cool spaces. But what's also interesting is, just going back to the whole people proposition, it's the other stuff that we plug in there as well. So in the sites that we've got things like, backup childcare facilities, some Starbucks there, some really creative, like just more relaxed areas for people to think and work. Those are the sites that we have much, much higher utilisation in. And I heard someone, it was my old boss, talked about, we used to always think about work-life balance. Now it's about work-life integration. And people aren't able to separate the two anymore. So it's about being able to still live at work and get everything that you need to get done. And if that means making sure your kid's okay, then that's what it is, But also when you're working at home, you've got every piece of technology that you need to be able to do that well.
Great. One more question, and we'd love to open it up. There might be skeptics in the audience, real estate leaders who've tried to work with their HR counterparts and it's just not worked. If I could just ask each of you to comment, Francis first, maybe one tip that you might have that you feel would be something that you'd impart to a real estate leader who's tried to get this going.
I think it's just, get the right people in the room, and for us, we're a business case in terms of like trying to do it from one particular perspective. How that doesn't work, we absolutely are. And we're also a fantastic business case for the strategic alignment of pulling that three-legged stool together and seeing the difference. We can put dollar amounts on this is, since we've embarked on this approach, here's how much better we do. So for us, it's a no-brainer.
Any other thoughts on that?
I would just add, it's the same skills you need for any good collaboration, is being flexible and listening to the differing points of view. And as I'm on some work teams for some office build-outs here in the Bay Area right now, and we get on these calls, and it's about listening, being thoughtful, being respectful of other points of view, but also helping to educate others and be part of the process. So just be open-minded, because this is a whole new world, and it's going to, we got to look to where the ball is going to go, not to where it is right now. Yeah.
And I would just add to that you always want to come at it from an engagement perspective. Talk to the end users, talk to the employees about what they're thinking, what's working for them, what's not, what they feel we're missing the points on, and then also back it up with some data. It's always good to have some facts around utilization or employee engagement when you're making your case.
Great, thank you. We have a few minutes for some questions. We'd love to take them if you have anything you'd like to ask the panel. Yes, Kate.
Hi, Kate North with eWork. Great session. I think it's fantastic we've got HR's voice here. One of the questions that I have is based upon the fact that we know that being together face-to-face is optimal. Yet we know that we are already remote. People are already highly mobile. So when we hear these organizations that are saying everybody back in the office, it's not really going to work, because the train's left the station. We are already highly mobile. And as I think about it, it feels like that the reason why there's this back into the office portion of it is that because we don't know how to really be connected and collaborate virtually. Technology is getting easier around this, and we've got great conversation between HR and CRE going on, but I'd love to hear more about your relationship with IT and how is IT helping this, allowing people to really build that type of presence so that they can connect anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. I can partially answer. Absolutely, Kate. You know, the train has left the station, and I think at Autodesk we're definitely just asking the question, like, what is okay for that balance? And I think it's all about finding the right balance of face-to-face collaboration and then virtual collaboration. And I think for a lot of jobs, it just depends on where your team is located. If they're located all over the world, you're obviously going to be doing more remote collaboration. But I think for our perspective is, if you can come into the office, we want to take advantage of the face-to-face collaboration. And what's worked successfully for us is to identify which days to come in and which days are okay to work remotely. That seems to be the most successful so far with some of our more effective teams. And then from the IT perspective, I partner with our IT group on a monthly basis, just really pushing them and giving them feedback, because a lot of times they don't hear from the end users what the limitations are with our software. So it's a great collaboration, and they're always, you know, looking to push the envelope on what people are actually using, because what we as Autodesk says to use, which is Link and some other applications, we know our customers are using, or our employees are using Skype and Uvo and some other software packages that aren't necessarily mandated by Autodesk. So we're always looking to IT to really come up with better solutions for that remote collaboration.
What I might also jump in and say is, what we often hear is, if IT is last to the table, then there's a lot of frustration, because the last thing you want is a great space with people who are highly engaged, excited, and then they can't get their work done because IT has not been plugged in an aligned way. So we are always talking about building those relationships at the top of the organization, at the manager level, and being really, really mindful of the fact that by having all three of those stakeholders together, you can only have more opportunity for a successful workplace initiative.
One thing I would add there as well, I mean, for us, we've done really well in that space. You know, we do have the technology for people at home, and it works exceptionally well. It was so crucial to our business model that we couldn't not get that right. And I think I wouldn't underestimate the knock-on effects that it can have on culture. So there's all this discussion right now about bringing people back into the office because you've got to create the right culture. Absolutely agree. But there's also this other culture. There's good cultural things that come out of the remote working side of things. We have, like, there's a lot more leaders blogging now, for example. We use same time as it's just a normal mode of communication. Our group CEO says that he gets same time. He'll make sure that he logs on to same time, like for a few hours every day. Anyone, a bank teller can same time this guy now and have a conversation. The accessibility to our leadership team is far, far greater, and people are using it. And it comes back to the whole millennial piece. That group of people, that they don't think about the hierarchy and maybe I shouldn't same time this guy and ask him. They just get right on in there, and it's changing our culture for the better.
So I'll share a story to pile on. It is all about balance. I think you need both. Be able to work well virtually and have the time to have face-to-face connections. And I keep joking that voicemail is obsolete at this point in my organization. And in our systems, when you get a voicemail, you get an email saying you got a voicemail from somebody. And so with our new millennials, they haven't learned how to use voicemail. So they'll go through orientation and not even have figured out how to dial into voicemail. So they will get a voicemail from our regional managing partner, Kay Matthews, and they don't have any qualms, to your point, Francis. They won't listen to the voicemail. They'll send her an email or a same time and saying, I see you left me a voicemail. I don't know what it's about, and I don't know how to get into my voicemail. Can you, let me know what you need? And it drives her crazy. She's getting used to it because, she now realizes that this is a generational thing. But at first, it drove her nuts. But it's kind of funny where things are moving. But technology, if they've got to be first at the table or at the same time as everything else, or else the stool will collapse.
It looks like we have to wrap up. Can we take one more? Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, I wonder if you comment on what the workplace will look like in 10 or 15 years' time. I.e., what is the logical conclusion of all the radical changes that are happening right now?
I'm going with Jerry's philosophy. We're crap at that.
Yeah. it's hard for me. I'm stuck in the confines of a baby boomer's head, and so it's hard for me to really look at that. When I see at the Workspace, our new stuff that we're building out is so radical compared to what we're used to. It's hard for me to envision something different than where we're already, pushing the envelope. But I would love to see it.
I think for me it starts with technology. Just looking at over the last 10 years, what has been the most significant shift in the way we work, and I would say technology is right up there. So we're keeping our eye on the changes in technology to really kind of drive changes in the workplace.
And we often hear it's not where you go, it's what you do. It's the work you do. And it's more about the work you do and getting the best work done versus where you're going to do it. And I think the more people can realize that that's the direction, it opens up a lot of possibilities in terms of some of the things that you're asking. Are we on time? We're good?
We're good. We have a big round of applause, please, for our panel discussion.